Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first day of September. And hey, it's spring and spring has sprung. It is wonderful to see that beautiful weather out there. Spring is, best in any country, but I think it's so much better right here in Brisbane with the weather that we have right here. Well, let's have a quick look at what the weather is going to be looking like for today. With that, we'd like to welcome Dilraj.
Good morning everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of Tuesday is maximum of 25 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy. Patchy fog was seen early this morning. Slight chances of shower in the late morning and afternoon. Light winds becoming southeasterly 15 to 25 km per hour in the early afternoon, then becoming light in the late evening. Fire danger is low to moderate. Sun protection is recommended till 2:30 p.m. UV index predicted to reach 6, that is high. And spring is finally in the air, with some part of the country seeing good rainfall this year, but that doesn't mean Australia's drought has broken. Severe thunderstorms become more frequent in spring. Spring is also the time when a different kind of storm is most common, that is a dust storm, which happens when strong winds pick up dust and dirt from the ground, raises it into the atmosphere and carries it over an extensive area. Dust storms can trigger health problems for some people and cause disruption to transport due to poor visibility. And if the promise of spring makes you want to head for the great outdoors, check out Bureau of Meteorology Guide to Weather for Bushwalkers and Campers. Till tomorrow, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dilraj, for that. And ladies and gentlemen, as we know, it is that time of the year, and you need to take a little bit care as well with all the hay fevers that come around that time of the year as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, moving along, we have today a very sad news which we're going to begin with, and that is the passing away of our expert, and he's none other than Pranab Mukherjee. And as we know, he has served India in so many different roles, and he entered politics around, I think, 1959 or so. But right now, let's go and pay a tribute to him.
I believe that bedrock of Indian civilization has been the pluralism and its social, cultural, linguistic and racial diversity. It mesmerizes me when I shut my eyes and think of India. 1.3 billion people in their daily life using 200 languages, practicing 7 religions, having amidst themselves all 3 major ethnic groups: Dravidians, Caucasians, Mongolites, yet residing under one system, one flag, with one identity, Indian. It is because of the celebration of diversity.
Veteran politician and India's 13th president, Pranab Mukherjee, passed away at the age of 84. Mukherjee was admitted in Delhi Cant Army Hospital for a brain surgery, and it was here that he tested positive for COVID-19. Born on December 11, 1935 in Bengal's Birbhum district, Mukherjee entered politics in 1969. Aided by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, Mukherjee was elected to the Rajya Sabha on a Congress ticket. After Rajiv Gandhi came to power, however, Pranab was sidelined and moved from national to regional politics. This led him to float the Rashtriya Samajwadi Congress Party, which eventually merged with the Congress in 1989 after reaching a consensus with Rajiv Gandhi. Pranabda, as he was affectionately called, donned several critical positions in his political career spanning over 5 decades, serving as Union Minister for Finance, Defence, Foreign Affairs and Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission. Mukherjee was virtually number 2 in Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's government and was the UPA's key troubleshooter, often serving as the link between the Congress and its allies. In 2017, After completing his term as president, he decided not to run for re-election and retired from public life. He was conferred India's highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, in 2019.
And we pay tribute to a great man, and we have had the honor of meeting him at the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas in India, and always a very nice, humble and soft-spoken man. May his soul rest in peace. It is 1935 till 2020, and lately we have seen quite a few people who have passed away and are no more, as we have seen Sushma Swaraj ji, Arun Jaitley, and now Pranab Mukherjee ji. So this has not been a very, very good time. But on the other lighter note, this is also the time of Onam. This is when the harvest festival is celebrated, and of course with Raja Bali being welcomed into all the homes, and all the festivities that go around with them. I'm really missing that, as we know, if it wasn't for COVID-19, we would be attending so many functions right here in Brisbane, and we would be having those traditional meals served on the banana leaves. Really, really missed it. And part of that is like a Rangoli kind of the decoration. So, happy Onam to everyone. And even under the COVID conditions, it's being celebrated. So it's wonderful to see. So wonderful to see that the celebrations, as I said before, if it wasn't for COVID-19, we'd be having that celebration right here in Brisbane as well. Isn't it wonderful to see India such rich and culturally diverse, and all sorts of colors, customs and traditions all coming together and living in, of course, harmony. And that was what Pranabji was saying before in his speech, that it amazes him to see how so many different cultures can live side by side, celebrate, as we know, Onam, and that the Pokalam, which was decorated in front of the Ayyappan temple in Indore. Now, Swami Ayyappan Puja also happens right here in Brisbane, Swarnam, and Dr. Unni, he organizes that every year. That is wonderful that he does that. So many different cultures, so many traditions, and it's wonderful to see that they're all being kept alive and under the current circumstances and conditions. Even then, with masks and social distancing. They're observing, so good on them. And happy Onam to everyone. And as I said, I'm really missing those celebrations and being part of those celebrations as we know them. Well, right now, let's join our Premier and get an update of what's happening right here in Queensland.
We'll just discuss onto Cairns issues. Okay.
Mic test done, so let's...
All right, well, thanks everyone. So we'll give the COVID update first and then we'll move on to Cairns issues. So the Deputy Premier and I will discuss COVID first. So overnight I can report we have had only 2 new cases. This is terrific news, and thank you again for everyone who's going out there and getting tested. So I can confirm that one person, they're both from the West Moreton region. One person is a nurse from the Ipswich Hospital, and also remember that Dr Young put in all those strict measures about health staff wearing PPE. So the DP will talk a little bit more about that. The second one is a student at Staines Memorial College at Redbank Plains. Now this college is closed at the moment, and of course we are in the process of testing all of the students. So there's about 600 students that attend that college, and we are working through with the parents and the staff to make sure that everyone out there is being tested, and that is the second confirmed case now from Staines Memorial College, and that person is an 18-year-old student. Now, and also in breaking news, now the Deputy Commissioner will be addressing this later on this morning. Police have apprehended a man that has come from Victoria who was known to be positive. This is great work from the police that have been able to apprehend this man who was trying to get into Queensland illegally. This goes to show how strong our border measures are and the fact that they are working. So the Deputy Commissioner will address the facts of that case in more detail. So we now have 28 active cases, and the total number of confirmed cases is 1,124, and the number of tests conducted in the last 24 hours is 7,489. So I just want to stress to everyone too, if you have any symptoms, please go and get tested. And Queensland will get through this if we all work together. So, like I said, 2 new cases overnight, but police have done an absolute wonderful job in apprehending a man who is positive. So, of course, there'll be some contact tracing on that flight that came in from Melbourne to Brisbane, but came into Queensland positive, and that has been apprehended. And just imagine if that person had got out into our community. So my hat goes off to all of the police who are working on our borders right across our state. Well done, and the Deputy Commissioner will address that matter specifically later. My understanding is later on this morning. So I'll hand over to the Deputy Premier, and then we'll talk about Cairns. Thanks. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Premier. So we are reporting 2 new additional positive cases in Queensland, but increasing our number of active cases in the state by 3 today. The first is a 37-year-old male nurse from the Ipswich Hospital. He works in the COVID ward at the hospital, and there have been COVID positive patients in that COVID ward. He identified that he had abdominal pain, which is not normally considered a symptom of COVID-19, but he was incredibly wise, and he identified that that was a symptom that could be from COVID-19. He went and got tested, and that test came back positive. It underlines how...
So it goes to prove that, that testing is so important, that we really need to, if we are feeling unwell, to get yourself tested ASAP and without any ado. And with that, moving on, because those things have been covered by the Premier herself, and now she will be talking about that matter in Cairns. So let's once again join in with the Premier.
Back through those stages of restrictions.
All right, we might just move on to Cairns. Might bring Sandra in as well at the moment. Okay, so as we know, Cairns in the far north is an incredibly large area, and the health of people living in this area is fundamental to my government. Since 2015, we have put on an extra 223 doctors here, an extra 489 nurses and midwives, and 126 extra health professionals. And my understanding is that the Cairns Hospital here sometimes receives around 79,000 admissions into its emergency department. So with the growth in presentations here, but also to the large area that the hospital services, the Deputy Premier and I, we have decided that we are definitely going to be working with James Cook University to expand this hospital, to grow this hospital, and to make this hospital a Cairns University hospital. We have a similar hospital in Townsville, but what this fundamentally means is that I want to see local people from the far north, I want to see them raise their children here and give their children the opportunities to be trained here, to live here, to raise their families here and to work here. And we can do that if we have a very strong partnership with James Cook University. Now, just yesterday, I took the Cabinet to James Cook University, where we were in one of the brand new buildings, setting up Cairns for the future, an innovation centres hub. And I really want to thank Sandra Harding for allowing the Cabinet to meet there, and we put in $10 million into that centre. We know how important this university hospital is. I know how important the staff are in terms of making it function, and we want to go to that next step. So today we are announcing the next step to making Cairns a university hospital. So we will be working with James Cook University on a preliminary business case. We'll be putting $1.5 million into that. Our total funding announcement today is $52.9 million. That'll mean $26.4 million to expand the emergency department. I'm quite sure that some of our hard-working workers over here from the emergency department know that that extra funding is going to help relieve some of the pressures there. $1.5 million on a multidisciplinary pre-admission clinic, $2 million in a new endoscopy room, $800,000 to fit out a 12th operating theatre, and $20.7 million of critical upgrades to the Cairns University Hospital. And this will mean 150 people involved in the construction as well for this expansion. So this is great news. I know it's something that all of the local members have been raising with me and also with the Deputy Premier, but this is the next crucial step in making Cairns Hospital become a Cairns University Hospital. So my government knows how important the healthcare is for our families, no matter where you live in Queensland. And we know that when we're dealing with COVID and a world pandemic, our hospitals are prepared. We have the resources, we have the staff, and we have the training. And now I want to see a really bright future, especially for people living here in the far north, to be able to live here, raise their families, and get the training and the opportunities here. So a very great day, and I want to thank all of the local members for raising this as one of their top key priorities for this region. I'll hand over to...
So one of the top key priorities and one of the promises has been fulfilled there with the government, and I think it's wonderful news for FNQ, which is Far North Queensland, with the second hospital, which is now a government hospital. It is wonderful. $1.5 million as a grant there will go a long way. Well, right now we've been talking also, with the migrant community, and the minister there has announced that there will be more help for all the migrants who are having problems with English and what's going to happen with the English classes. So the Morrison government is making it easier for new migrants to learn, improve their English language skills by increasing the number of available hours through the Adult Migrant English Program, which is IMEP. We are also making the program more flexible, so there are more opportunities and ways to improve and learn English. So from today, migrants in Australia will be able to access more than the current standard of 510 available through IMEP. Better English language skills improve a person's chance of getting jobs and helps them being more involved in the community and lets people fully participate in the democracy. Only 13% of those with English skills are in work compared to the 62% those who speak English well. As we face unprecedented changes, English is also important to us in the social cohesion. Recognizing the importance of English language in Australia, the government spends $250 million per year into English language programs to support 60,000 enrollments a year. Currently, people only complete about 300 hours of 510 available, and only 21% live at a functional level of English. The classes are not compulsory, and while we may consider additional incentives for people to take up the classes, there is no new requirements to be tested or achieve a certain level of English. Australia has changed a lot in the last 70 years, and we know that, with the number of Australians born overseas rising from 10% to around 30% today. We can have people migrating from countries whose native languages are more linguistically distant from English, meaning it is likely harder for them to learn English. These changes will mean that more migrants will be able to access free English tuition for longer and until they reach a preferred level of proficiency in English language. So I think that is a wonderful news, and I think it's a great initiative of the federal government that's been put forward by Minister Alan Tudge. So it is wonderful that that kind of help is available out there. And as mentioned in that, there is no compulsion, but that they have increased the hours that is available. So I hope that people from our community are able to take that up. Well, right now, let's go to the top stories for today.
Sunday, there have been another 73 new coronavirus infections and a further 41 deaths. 33 of those fatalities took place before yesterday, with 8 occurring in the past 24 hours. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, says the government will consult with industry, unions and community organisations to develop the roadmap to reopen. The federal opposition is accusing the government of using criticism of Victoria's tough coronavirus lockdown as a distraction from its own lack of economic planning. Treasury Department analysis shows the additional COVID-19 restrictions in Victoria are hitting discretionary spending in the state. There are 975,000 Victorians receiving the JobKeeper wage subsidy, but that is forecast to rise to 1.3 million. In the US, a man has been shot dead after a large procession of US President Donald Trump supporters clashed with Black Lives Matter protesters in Portland. Police have not revealed the man's identity or specified whether the shooting was linked to the clashes. The Mayor of Portland has accused Donald Trump of sowing division in the country. And in soccer, Sydney FC has won a historic 5th A-League championship, beating Melbourne City in extra time at Western Sydney Stadium. With scores level after 90 minutes, Ryan Grant put the Sky Blues in front after 9 minutes of extra time.
So that's the top stories for today. And right now, let's take a very quick commercial break before we go into the news in brief.
ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी 1989 से लेकर अब तक का विश्वसनीय और माननीय ब्रिस्बेन का रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। उषा चंद्रा, जो कि ग्लोबनेट की डायरेक्टर है, अपने ग्राहकों को ईमानदार और एथिक सर्विसेज देती हैं। अगर आप ब्रिस्बेन की प्रॉपर्टी में पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोफेशनली मैनेज किया जाए, तो आप आज ही कांटेक्ट कीजिए उषा चंद्रा को। लैंडलाइन नंबर है 38654466 और मोबाइल नंबर है 0419775416। और आप प्रॉपर्टी की अधिक जानकारी और करंट अपडेट्स के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे लॉगिन कर सकते हैं। हमारी वेबसाइट है www.globenetreality.com.au। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी आपका अपना लोकल रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। हमारा पता है ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, शॉप नंबर 5, 2281 सैंडगेट रोड, बुंदल, क्वींसलैंड। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, रियल एस्टेट इज अवर वर्ल्ड।
And real estate is really their world. Well, right now it's time to move on to the news in brief, and the first news we have right here. And that's the New South Wales Police investigating the shooting at Bonnyrigg. As we know, Bonnyrigg, closer to Liverpool, and that's the investigation. And police are appealing for help to find a gunman who opened fire on a home in the western suburbs last night. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Australian Indian Radio, and we're getting the daily update. Next up, we look at the emergency services, which are called for an incident at Waikol as well. So, let's take a look at what's happened. There's a lot of police cases been happening. The first one was at Bonnyrigg. Right now, let's go to Waikol. Now, it wasn't long ago when we were talking about going to the moon. And 60 years ago, the world watched in wonder at the dawning of the space age. Humankind's first flight into space and the landing on the moon showed the seemingly impossible that was achievable. I will never forget that day because we went to school in the morning, and about morning tea time, we were told to go home because it's going to be a holiday. Man had landed on moon. So let's take a quick look at the space shuttle.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
60 years ago, the first human flights to space changed our perspective forever.
Looking back and seeing that our Earth was just a pale blue dot in a vast ocean of darkness, I do think it's a perspective that I wish more people had the opportunity to see.
When you have an image of the Earth and you realize every single thing you've known, studied, heard, read, met, learned about is contained in that single image, it changes your worldview.
It's the nature of human species. We're an exploratory creature since the Stone Age, when we sort of walked out of the cave and wondered what's over the next valley. We've always been explorers, and we still always will be explorers. We're never going to be content to just sit on Earth.
Once an explorer, always an explorer. Yes, that's us, that's humankind. But right now, Australia is coming of age. Benson Sualu to become Australia's first Indigenous Consul General to United States. So tonight we begin the first of the four-part, and is a prominent and young Indigenous leaders as, he's set to become Australia's first Indigenous Consul General in United States. And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful news. It's a long time coming, but it's happening.
For the first time, Australia has recognised the legal existence of...
As Prime Minister of Australia, I am sorry.
My name is Benson Sallow. I'm connected to the Wemba Wemba, Jadawajali and Gunditj Mara nations of Western Victoria, as well as New Ireland Province in Papua New Guinea. I've been appointed Australia's next Consul General to the US to be based in Houston. It's a wonderful honour to be able to represent Australia. I remember the phone call like it was yesterday. It was a wash of excitement, but then almost the immediate understanding of a sense of expectation or sense of responsibility. Being the first Indigenous Australian to hold this position anywhere in the world. I grew up in Tamworth in New South Wales, which is on the lands of the Gomeroi people. I realised I wanted to be a leader from a very young age. Growing up in the church, seeing my father as a minister, delivering really powerful sermons, it can't not leave a mark on you. And it was actually around 2011 where actually my life changed. I was appointed the Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations. I travelled right across Australia going to remote communities right through to major cities. And it really opened my eyes to the really broad diversity of the experiences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. And, you know, it's quite easy, particularly living here in Melbourne or, you know, in major cities, to have kind of blinders up in regards to what are the experiences of, you know, of our communities in remote areas. And that all culminated in living in New York during the General Assembly and leading 2 negotiations on behalf of Australia, one which had the focus around the global financial crisis impact on young people. In my 20s, I had a bit of a crisis of confidence. All my life, from a very young age, I'd been kind of tapped on the shoulder and told, oh, this guy, he's going to go places, you know, he's a young leader, keep an eye on this fellow. And, you know, there's parts of you that you believe it because you're being told it, and there's other parts of you going, well, who am I to be that person? So on my 22nd birthday, I remember coming home, putting the key into the lock, turning the door and stepping into my hallway and visibly seeing the walls melting around me. And I didn't know it at the time, but, you know, I was actually having a panic attack. Went straight into my room, and I didn't want to speak to anyone except my dad. And my dad, he's very kind of direct in a lot of times, and he kind of just goes, "Oh, son, you're being silly." And I went, "What?" Like when I'm in this kind of state, like, why would you tell me that I'm just being silly? And he said, "No. You don't always have to think about who you want to be. You don't always have to think about, you know, the person that you're going to be or grow into." We identified people that I value in my life, and we talked about why I value them, to be able to then, you know, think about, well, what kind of character do I want to have? And, you know, what started from a very dark situation actually became a lesson that still today is actually something that, you know, I hold dear.
The time has come when Australia can no longer tolerate legal racial discrimination against its Indigenous people.
There should be no legislation set up to discriminate us.
An important message for leaders is that change is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. Change actually takes time, it's incremental. Look, if I think about, you know, the success of the 1967 referendum, where over 90% of Australians voted in favour of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to become citizens, to be recognised, you know, this is a culmination of a 10-year-long campaign led by young people, but with the vision and the understanding that change takes time. I think as a nation, we've actually come a long way. You know, I just have to reflect back on my mum's journey. You know, growing up in a tin shed with dirt floors, in a paddock on the outskirts of a very small regional town, through to having her son represent Australian youth at the United Nations General Assembly. My message for young people that are watching this is actually the message that my father gave me, is never think the world is not yours. Never think that because of your skin colour, because of your culture, because of your upbringing, that you're not valuable and you're not valid as an individual. When I think about my hopes for the next generation, you know, it's actually very close to home. You know, I have an 8-month-old daughter, and so my hope for the next generation, you know, of you know, creating a more inclusive and more supportive world in which they will inherit, actually starts today.
Wow, what a powerful message there. And just a similar conversation I was having with someone yesterday. Don't forever, feel that, you can't do things. You know, never dwell in the past. Always look at the forward and move forward. And there are things that can be done. There's so many things, so many stories of people here who have come from very humble backgrounds, reaching very high levels. And that is only through determination and perseverance. And of course, we're always doing the right thing and never losing that focus. So always think and grow big and move forward. Always have those better thoughts in life. And I think what he said, I can really resonate with him, that never believe that you don't belong, that you will only be, at a lower level. Always aim high or reach high and stay on it, stay focused, and you will get to the top. That's a wonderful story, a very, very moving story there, I must say. Well, right now, let's take a quick look at some of the events taking place. Just a note on the events that some of the events might have been postponed. If you're planning to go to any of the events, please first check up with the organizers, because some of the ones might now be like a virtual or an online event rather than a face-to-face or in-person event. And that is wonderful to see, because that's the way things are. We know that many meetings have been cancelled as well, and they've been reconvened as Zoom meetings or online meetings, taking into account the current circumstances and, of course, looking at all the restrictions that are in place at the moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I need to say goodbye. It's been wonderful having your company here today on the first day of September 2020, and spring has sprung. And we'll bring to you some of the sorts of in and around Brisbane, reflecting that wonderful spring that we have here in Brisbane. Well, until tomorrow, be good, but above all, stay safe. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.